January 1945, Luzon, Philippines. Before dawn, the jungle air hangs heavy with rot and salt. Mist clings to banana leaves and rusted shell casings. Somewhere beyond the trees, engines murmur, not tanks, not artillery, but generators humming steadily, rhythmically, like an unfamiliar heartbeat. Water drips from leaves, but none of it is drinkable. For months, men here have learned that thirst can be more dangerous than bullets. This moment matters because by early 1945, the Pacific War had reached a brutal phase of attrition. Japanese forces, stretched thin across island chains, faced not only American firepower, but logistics on a scale they had never imagined. The Imperial Japanese Army had trained its soldiers to endure deprivation as a virtue. Scarcity was expected. Suffering was discipline. Infrastructure, especially something as mundane as clean water, was considered secondary to spirit. American forces arrived with a different doctrine, one built on engineering, supply, and industrial depth. Japanese soldiers expected invasion to mean chaos, blown bridges, poisoned wells, scorched earth. Imperial doctrine had taught that Americans were materially soft, dependent on luxury, unable to function without comfort. In Japanese field manuals, enemy troops were portrayed as reckless consumers, not builders. What they encountered instead was methodical construction. Within days of landing, U.S. Army engineers were clearing ground, laying pipes, erecting purification units. Fresh water flowed where stagnant swamps had been. Historical records confirm this pattern repeatedly. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers after-action reports from the Philippines and Okinawa describe the rapid installation of mobile water purification plants, some capable of producing tens of thousands of gallons per day. The standard Leicester bag, combined with chlorination units and later reverse osmosis-style filtration systems, allowed American units to bypass local wells entirely. According to U.S. Army logistical data, American forces in the Pacific averaged over 5 gallons of potable water per soldier per day, even during active combat operations. By the war's end, these impressions carried forward. In occupied Japan, American engineers again prioritized water systems, sanitation, and reconstruction. The same logic that had built purification plants under fire now rebuilt cities. Former soldiers recognized the pattern. The sound of pumps, once heard in jungles, reappeared in ruined neighborhoods, this time without gunfire. In the epilogue of this story, water remains. It flows through pipes long after rifles fall silent. It becomes a quiet testament to a larger truth, that power can be expressed not only through destruction, but through the capacity to provide. The shock Japanese soldiers felt was not just at American technology, but at an idea that freedom and abundance could be engineered, shared, and sustained. In the end, the generators stopped, the plants were dismantled, and the war moved on. But the memory of clean water and a place defined by thirst lingered. It whispered that victory might belong not only to those who endure suffering, but to those who choose to eliminate it. For Japanese soldiers watching from concealment or captivity, this was incomprehensible. Many had survived on rainwater collected in helmets or brackish streams fouled by decay. Diaries recovered after the war speak quietly of this shock. One Japanese infantryman captured near Manila wrote that the Americans made water where there was none, noting that their camps smelled not of rot but of soap and steam. Another account, preserved in post-war interrogations, described disbelief that machines could turn mud into life. The emotional contrast was stark. Japanese soldiers had been taught that endurance itself was victory, that hunger and thirst purified loyalty. Yet here was an enemy that seemed to reject suffering as a necessity. Water flowed freely, not as a reward, but as a baseline. Canteens were filled without ceremony. Engineers worked under fire not to advance weapons, but to ensure hydration. The sounds of generators pumping water through filters became a constant presence, replacing the silence of drought. This abundance was not accidental, it was doctrine. American military planning placed logistics at the center of strategy. General George C. Marshall emphasized that battles were won as much by supply as by tactics. In the Pacific, where disease historically killed more soldiers than combat, clean water was a weapon. U.S. Medical Corps statistics showed dramatic reductions in dysentery and waterborne illness compared to earlier conflicts. Engineers were as critical as infantry. For Japanese forces, this challenged ideology itself. The imperial system framed hardship as moral strength. American water plants symbolized the opposite, that technology and organization could spare men from unnecessary suffering. Captured Japanese officers reportedly questioned how a society could afford such excess. Post-war interviews reveal that some began to associate American power not merely with weapons, but with systems, networks of production and care extending back across the ocean. The recurring symbol was water itself, clear, drinkable, endlessly flowing. It appeared in canteens, in steel tanks, in pipes snaking through mud. Water marked the boundary between two worldviews. For American soldiers, it was an entitlement. For Japanese soldiers, it had been a gamble. The same liquid reflected two ideologies, one that accepted scarcity as fate and one that sought to engineer it away. This experience transformed perception. While it did not erase loyalty or end resistance, it planted doubt. Some Japanese prisoners later admitted that seeing American infrastructure altered their understanding of the enemy. The United States was no longer just an aggressor, but a civilization capable of sustaining life at scale. Historian John Dower notes that such encounters quietly undermined wartime propaganda by exposing contradictions between expectation and reality.